What is going on, everybody? This is the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast, episode 34, coming your way. What is this, ladies and gentlemen?
A little bit different.
A little bit different, little weird, but listen, we're here to roll with the punches. Trying some new things out, seeing what works. But I'm your host as always, Meek. I got my main man with me, Wu. Wu, what's going on today, brother?
First off, I have major beef with Zoom.
Come at them.
As you can see, we are still using their platform, but we did figure it out. But I was unaware that if you don't have an account, you can only have a meeting for so long. And that's not okay because I remember when Zoom first came out, everybody had to use it for classes and work, during COVID, and you could set up a meeting, no problem, no questions asked. And now you have to buy the upgraded version to have a meeting longer than 40 minutes. Zoom, do better.
Yeah.
Thankfully, Meek is a part of the school system. We could use this for free.
Shut up.
But I mean, come on, man. That's ridiculous to me, but that's besides the point. We figured it out.
Listen, with technology, we always have to innovate ourselves, try to be better, and then sometimes technology tries to take advantage
Like
of
we don't need your Zoom AI version. Like,
Yeah,
get out of
that
here.
was Wu had a big gripe with Zoom AI for a second. He
I'm out.
lost it.
I'm out. I mean, come on. You're putting a timing on my meeting. Give me a break.
Yep, exactly. But hey, listen, we're here to give you an episode as always. Just the top of the show. Go through some housekeeping. We've hit 18, 20 plus plays across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. That is thanks to the folks who are listening as you are right now. Watching a little bit different view, but we appreciate you watching as you have been. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials: Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, and YouTube at Fourth and Fantasy. Make sure you give us a like and a follow. Share, give us the 5-star ratings on the podcast and our socials and all those things. Make sure you leave a comment because you may see yourself on the show, like we have today. So quick question of the day. We have a TikTok DM from a follower of the show, Jake R. First off, Jake, appreciate you sending us a DM.
Shout out.
Obviously, it's redraft season's coming up, and people have a lot of questions. So obviously, just like Jake has, you can reach out to us either in the comments of a video or through a DM, and we will try our best to get back to you. So Jake had a couple of questions for us, in a series of questions. Let me see if I can pull up the entire message. So Jake had said, "Hi, I have a few questions about who I should draft. My first one is Gibbs or CD. My second one is Hampton or Kamara. And my last one is Sutton or Ridley. Thank you."
I love it.
So I'm going to kick it to you, Wu, because I did have a chance to respond to Jake, but I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on these three separate questions.
Okay, so the Gibson CD one is tough because we were talking about this pre-show. We have our Bonnet Redraft League coming up. I'm sitting at the third spot, and you had asked me, who I'm thinking about. In Gibbs and CD are two names that I am thinking about. For anyone in this Bonnet League, my answer to this question will not be who I'm taking. I'm not guaranteeing that's my third pick. But
Or is it?
see, it's really tough because when you're playing in a full PPR league, obviously the receivers are going to have a higher value. But in this situation, Gibbs is a receiving running back, so you kind of can throw that argument out the window.
Sure.
And especially with a guy like CD who is going to dominate targets, even with Pickens, I think the Cowboys are going to throw the ball a ton. Especially with how bad that defense is and really their lack of a running game. And now that we're getting Dak back healthy, I'm all in on CD. I love him a lot. Definitely heavily considering him at 3. However, Gibbs is the other side of the coin here, who I'm having trouble deciding between the two. I think for this question here, I'm gonna go CD Lamb. I think I'm more confident in what I can see from him from a production standpoint, no matter who else is on the field with him. Not to say that I'm nervous about Gibbs at all, because I'm not. I don't want people to think that it's not the case. However, we did see Dave Montgomery miss a little bit of time last year, and yes, Gibbs dominated that entire time. But we know David Montgomery is coming back. And if Montgomery, if they use him how they did back in 2023, Montgomery took a lot of touchdowns away from Jahmyr Gibbs. Yes, I mean, I'm picking at straws here with that
Still had
argument there.
16 touchdowns. I
It,
remember
it-
we talked about this last episode.
exactly, yeah. So I mean, I'm pulling at straws here with that argument. Honestly, I really don't think you can go wrong with either one of those guys. I think for this question though, specifically, I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb. These next two, honestly, are a little bit easier for me. When it comes to Hampton and Kamara, I think I'm going to pick Kamara. And again, not because I don't like the talent of Hampton, but I think I saw a quote the other day, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it came from someone in the Chargers organization, and they said the time of, having a workhorse running back is over. Like there's going to be guys who are getting multiple touches throughout an offense. And I think Kamara is literally going to be the entire Saints offense. The argument against that, however, is the Saints are going to be a bad team and defenses are going to know they want to get the ball to Kamara. So I hear that argument. But I think from again, a PPR standpoint, that's the leagues that we play in specifically. Kamara will dominate in formats like that. It'll be a positional advantage for you on a week to week basis. I love Hampton as a player. Haven't seen him touch an NFL field just yet, so I'm still waiting to see that. I'm gonna go with what I trust here and what I know, and that's Alvin Kamara. And then for Sutton and Ridley, I'm gonna go Cortland Sutton. We'll hear about him a little bit later on in this show, but he's a wide receiver one on a much better offense than Calvin Ridley. You know, Bo Nix show was Bo Nix blew me out of the water last year. I'm not gonna lie.
Absolutely.
I did not have very high expectations for Bo
I
Nix
don't think anyone
whatsoever.
had high expectations on Bo Nix, to be honest with you.
Exactly. It was really, I think people were really scared about how much time he spent in college, how much moving around he did in college. But I think that's just the landscape of college football these days, and I think that's just going to be a normal now. So I think we can kind of forget about that going forward. But Cortland Sutton's going to be the wide receiver one for this offense. This was a team that I was heavily anticipating having making major upgrades for this offense because of how well Bo Nix played. You want to continue to build around him and put him in a position to produce and succeed. And he did that last year, and you would think they would continue to add on this year. They really didn't do that on the offensive side of the ball. The only
No.
playmaker they added was RJ Harvey, who's a running back and a rookie. So we don't know what he looks like on an NFL field yet either. And when it comes to the other wide receivers on this team, Marvin Mims, yes, he showed some flashes last year. I'm not concerned about him taking targets from Cortland Sutton at all. And then Pat Bryant, also a rookie, who Malik, I know you like him a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Just an interesting name to keep an eye on. Again, not someone I'm considering as a threat to taking targets away from Sutton.
No, not right away. Absolutely not. Cortland Sutton is the lead dog there. I think I took every question in a vacuum because I couldn't tell if he was asking these questions from the standpoint of this is my first round like pick question, this is my second round, this is my third. So I just took each one kind of separately.
Yep.
So the Gibson CD, I'm totally with you. I'm on CD for everything that you said before. Between Hampton and Kamara, I actually go Hampton. And I I really think this stint of Najee not being able to practice with the team and work with the ones is really going to affect his playing time this year. Like I think enough damage has been done. Like he just started doing individual drills. So like and he's got multiple steps to go before he even gets to full 11 on 11, and all of that time Hampton's getting run with the ones, he's learning, and from everything that I've heard he's dominating. You know what I mean? Like there was just a one of the beat reporters interviewed Khalil Mack and was just like, basically Khalil Mack, who is a man of few words, is like he's different. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I really think that Hampton is starting to cement himself as the one. Now Najee's going to come in and take some spells away from Hampton 100%, but this would be a completely different story if Najee was on the Chargers for like 2 to 3 years and had understood the system. He's also a first year guy himself, just like Hampton. So they're kind of on the same playing field. The only thing is that Najee had, 3 years in the NFL to, kind of show off his stuff. But I think Hampton's more talented. I think he's getting the opportunity due to Najee's injury. So that's why I lean Hampton over Kamara. And you know how much of an Alvin Kamara guy I am.
Right.
You
You
know what I
should
mean?
be.
So it's kind of it's a big deal for me to say Hampton over Kamara. And then the last one with Sutton and Ridley, I'm the same with you. Like I think I'm taking Sutton because I think talent wise, I would lean Calvin Ridley as being more talented wide receiver, but Sutton's in a way better offense, better quarterback currently right now, which means there's going to be more opportunities for receiving touchdowns and things like that for Sutton over Calvin Ridley.
Hmm.
So those are all the ways I was leaning. I think that I think it was a really good question, Jake. We really appreciate that. Just like I said before, you guys can also submit a question to us. Whether it's street redraft, dynasty, anything like that. Send it to us. TikTok DMs, Twitter, Instagram, all those things, and we'll try to get you on the show.
So I did find that quote because I had to double check myself. This came from Greg Roman, um, and it said who's he the offensive coordinator for? Is it the Chargers?
Yeah, he is.
Okay, he said, there will be rotation no matter what happens. The day of the one running back taking every rep, it's kind of gone the way of the prehistoric creatures.
Okay.
So I mean, it's preseason. You can take that with a grain of salt. But I did see that, and because it's coming from the Chargers offensive coordinator, that's where I bring my thought process to the table.
Absolutely. All right, we're gonna get into some NFL news. We actually got a lot of NFL news, which is good.
And big stuff too.
Yeah, big stuff. Exactly. So I'm going to call this section the Cleveland Browns beat report section. We got a lot of news for that. So first one, which is probably the biggest one, Florida prosecutors are now declining to formally charge Browns rookie running back Quinshon Judkins. This just broke a couple hours before we started to record. I want to see who we got that article from, but basically, there's going to be no legal. He's not going to face any charges for a misdemeanor battery assault. Prosecutors decided not to move forward. He was arrested back in July. So that's good news on the stance of Quinshon Judkins right now. However, it does not take it off the table that he's going to serve an NFL suspension. And by the way, he still hasn't signed his contract. He's the
Yep.
only, I think he's the only pick in the draft now who has not signed his contract. Definitely the only second
More
round
than
pick.
likely. Yeah.
So initial thoughts here. I think, we're definitely going to see a suspension come down from Roger Goodell and the NFL. I don't think I think we will see Quinshon Judkins at some point this year. But in terms of drafting wise, because in my mind, from everything I've read so far, it looks like it's going to be at the very minimum a 6 game suspension. But that also doesn't mean that he like signs his contract with the Browns and then lands on the commissioner exempt list where he's not allowed to participate and do anything, and then they do this kind of process and then they give him a 6 game suspension. So like for all intents and purposes, this year for Quinshon Judkins, absolutely off my board. Don't want any part of him. But if I'm a dynasty manager and in this chaos, I was able to make a trade for him. You got to be absolutely ecstatic for this.
Yeah, I mean that's huge. Have you seen anything where because I haven't, so that's why I'm asking if is there any way that this possible suspension that he gets from the NFL that it's guaranteed to happen this year? Or is there any way it gets pushed to next year, or is that like kind of still? Are we still up in the air? Is that like kind of where we're at now?
I think it's still up in the air. I think probably what it's contingent on is um, how, like, obviously, Florida prosecutors have said that they're not pursuing any charges, but they still have to kind of button up the case and kind of close it. So how long that process takes, how long the process of him signing a contract with the Browns also takes, and then all the while the NFL being able to take all of that information in and then make their own determination. So
Right.
it could be, and we've seen it in the past where they take all the information that they can, let everything button itself out. If he signs, they let him play, and then the following year he serves the suspension. But I have a feeling, especially with how big of a topic like potential domestic violence is in the NFL, that they're going to want to act on this very quickly. So that's why I feel I lean towards you could see something happen more so this year than them wait, let it marinate, and then act on it next year.
Yeah, it's super tough because we were both so in on Judkins,
Oh
especially in
my god,
redraft
yeah.
with how undervalued he was for someone who was probably going to dominate this backfield. It just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case anymore, especially even with the suspension. I'm not taking him if he's going to miss 6 games. Redraft, you have to start fast And you cannot start if you start 0 and 4, like it's tough sledding.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're drafting Judkins, like sure he might have been ideally like your running back 3, but still you were taking him in what, the 6th round, maybe even the 5th if you had
Right.
to.
And there's still good value there in the
It,
sixth round.
exactly. Like those are core pieces to your team. There's just too much going on here and not enough information for me to confidently draft him. Like if, for example, I have a draft this Saturday, there's no way. There's no
No,
way.
absolutely not. But I mean, if you're a dynasty manager like myself, and so we have a fantasy creator league with a bunch of TikTok creators that we did a dynasty league in, and I took Quinshon Judkins in that league. I just put him on my taxi squad, and
Just about to say that.
I have no problem with letting him sit there, and for the year until all of this kind of plays out. I'm moving forward as if I don't have Quinshon Judkins for the year, which is totally fine. And then in the following year, then we see how suspension plays out. Did he already do it? And then okay, let's start to really get into projections of what we think he's going to do in 2026. So 2025, not even considering him any, and that's okay. It's a bummer because we had high expectations for him, but it's just kind of the way it is. I mean, worst case scenario, we could have lost him for his entire career, you know what I mean, or for an entire year. The fact that he's gonna, it feels like I'm not going to say for sure, but the fact that he's going to get snaps in 2025 is kind of huge from where the story kind of initially broke.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a sigh of relief for dynasty managers. But again, redraft. I think if you are drafting him, I think you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah. Moving on. Next piece of Brown news that we have. Undrafted free agent wide receiver Isaiah Bond said he is signing with the Browns after a sexual assault case is no build. So this is from Nick Shook from NFL.com. Former Texas receiver Isaiah Bond will not face criminal charges stemming from his April sexual assault arrest and announced Thursday he is signing with the Cleveland Browns. Collin County District Attorney Greg Willis announced on Thursday that a grand jury returned a quote no bill account on the sexual assault charge against Bond, concluding proceedings against Bond and freeing him up to pursue his NFL career, which will lead him to Cleveland. Um, uh, for those of you who may, are reading this, are probably like, who is Isaiah Bond? Isaiah Bond was, um, you know, he was a receiver for Texas, came into the combine and made the proclamation that he was going to beat Xavier Worthy's 40 time, fell dramatically, far from that. I think I don't have the exact time, but I want to say it was like a 4.39 or something like that. Still, obviously fast, something I could never do in my life, but not the going to break the record kind of thing. So I mean, I'm first of all glad he's able to clear up this whole mess that he had, because this happened during the draft process and nobody wanted to touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Right.
So I'm glad he's able to kind of clear this up and potentially start his NFL career. It's definitely an uphill battle for him, but I mean, in the Browns organization or wide receiver room, I mean, they're really behind Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman. I can't even tell you who the third wide receiver is. So, if he's able to come in and be the talent that everyone thought he was going to be, maybe it could work out for him.
Yeah, that was the exact point I was going to make. If he was going to sign with any team, might as well do it in Cleveland. The receiver room is pretty much empty.
Yeah.
In whether people are confident in his talent or not, he's going to have an opportunity to showcase what he has, on the NFL field. Again, because that Browns wide receiver room is so thin. The only problem is the whole quarterback carousel. God
My
knows what's
God, it's
going
so
on.
bad.
Clown show, circus, whatever you want to call it. That's, that coincides with, his production on an NFL field. So it's kind of I don't know, like, yeah, it's a good situation because there's not a lot of wide receivers. Bad situation because you don't know who the quarterback is. And you might have a few different quarterbacks throughout the year. So, I mean, just something to pay attention to. If you want to throw a waiver wire for your dynasty roster,
Throw
go
him on the
for it.
taxi spot again.
Please do not put him on your redraft
No,
rosters.
do not consider this for your redraft at all. Moving on, last piece of Brown news: quarterback Shedeur Sanders has an oblique injury, is day to day. Stefanski reiterated that it is day to day, and then the rookie will be out of practice for a few days, and then is going to be reevaluated. Uh, what do we think, Wu? Is this something to panic about, or something to just like monitor and watch? Like, does this affect him? I mean, we didn't talk about, because it was happening as we were recording, but Shadur had a pretty good game.
He looked good.
You know what I mean, in preseason week 1. I'm trying to pull up the stats that he had.
While you pull that up, I got
Yeah,
some
go
things I
ahead.
want to say here. So, to answer your question, I'm not really concerned about this news. It's something to pay attention to. I don't think anybody's really expecting him to be starting week 1 anyways. Obviously, we want to see him get more reps in the preseason, but going off of, how he looked, like I thought he looked comfortable, like very comfortable. You know, very calm, not a lot of nerves, taking what he had, not forcing much, even, showed his legs a little bit. I think this is what, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was kind of my thought process during the draft process is like his ceiling is like he will be a game manager at
Oh
his
yeah.
best in the NFL. Like
Eh,
I was talking about this last night with some friends while we were golfing. His ceiling is Jared Goff. He can go out
yes.
and manage a game. If you don't turn the ball over, you get it to your guys who are open. You don't force anything. You take what the defense gives you. Like that is what he is. He's not a Lamar Jackson who's going to run all over the field when he doesn't have anything. He's
Nope.
not a Patrick Mahomes who's going to make guys miss behind the line of scrimmage and then throw the ball 60 yards down the field to a guy who's got no one behind him. Like that's just not who he is. He's right in the middle of that where yes, he can use his legs if he needs to, but he'll pick up 7 yards. He's not going to pick up 17.
Yeah.
Yes, he has solid arm talent, but he's going to throw the ball 15 yards. He's not going to throw it 35 yards. Like, yes, he has that in him, but that's just not his game. I think he's a game manager, at his best in the NFL, and you see that works. It's just a matter of the situation that's around you.
Yeah. His floor, like you said, his ceiling is Jared Goff, and I agree with you, but his floor is Geno Smith, you know what I mean, currently right now. So he completed 61% of his passes, 138 yards passing, and 2 touchdowns. Like that's
What else
perfect
could you
game,
ask for?
perfect game managing stuff. And then had 4 rushing attempts for 19 yards and was 4.8 yards per carry. Like he went out there, he did exactly like you said, managed the game. He did take 2 sacks. It is what it is. He's still a rookie at the end of the day, but he took care of the football. I think the biggest stat for him. I don't care about the yards. I don't care about the completion percentage. 0 picks. He's going to if he's going to continuously take care of the ball and be relied on, he may find himself onto the field. You know what I mean? Like obviously Joe Flacco is someone who can push the ball down the field and get it to someone like Jerry Judy down the field. But if he's going to throw picks and Shadur is going to take care of the ball, they're going to go to the guy who's going to take care of the ball.
And
So
there's one thing that you can't teach, and it's confidence. And the kid has way too much, and it's
no,
good. It's
he,
good.
he had his entourage coming in with a golden scythe
Listen,
and playing his music.
crazy play in the preseason, but again, there's people who have zero confidence and they're still good players.
Yeah.
But when you have a guy who is just at the perfect like does not lack any confidence, you cannot teach that. People go throughout their whole lives struggling with confidence issues, whether they're good at something or not. And obviously, he's a very talented football player. He was talented enough to get drafted in the NFL. He has all the confidence in the world. He is so clearly Deion Sanders' son.
Mhm.
I just think I don't know. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully that back to the whole reason why we were talking about him was the oblique injury. Hopefully that's not uh you know a big thing that sidelines him for a long time, and he can kind of get back out there and potentially put himself in the mix for the starting quarterback job. Moving on, we're going to do something other than the Browns. This one's actually, this should have been the top, but just because we had so many Browns players, I had to put them all together. This one I think is the biggest headliner right here. Wide receiver Rashi Rice is expected to have a disciplinary hearing with the NFL on September 30th regarding potential punishment stemming from a 2004 or 2024 crash that resulted in 2 third-degree felony charges. This comes from NFL Network insiders Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero. So basically, what this is, what we're hearing, Woo, is that Rashi Rice is going to play potentially the first 4 weeks of the season, and then he's going to go to the NFL office and then potentially, get a suspension. And there's so much speculation, whether it's 6 games, 8 games, he appeals it, and then it goes back down to 6 games. But like, if you're a drafter right now, or I mean, prime example, we are our Bonnet draft next Tuesday. Like, you're going to give Rashi Rice for the first 4 weeks of the season. Like,
And then what?
how are you approaching this?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we got the draft on Tuesday. I have a draft before it on Saturday, and again, like I want him really bad because if he plays a full season, I think he's a top 10 guy. Um, yes, the first 4 weeks is very nice, but the the question mark of that afterwards, because it could be nothing and all of a sudden, I have a wide receiver one on my team and I'm ecstatic. Or he misses the next 6 games and all of a sudden it's week 10 and you've only had him for 4 games and now he's got to come back, and get his football legs back under him, because when you get suspended, you can't practice either, right?
I don't think you can. No, you're
Exactly.
correct.
So that's possibly 6 weeks that he's, ice cold on the sideline, or, just sitting at home doing nothing. Not to say that, he wouldn't be doing his own works, but, to not be with the team and continuing with those reps and, staying in season form like that's scary. And I think he's going right now in like the fourth round. I don't remember
Was just about
exactly.
to pull it up for you. He's going currently at the 406.
Okay. Who else is around there?
So going before, or yeah, going before him is Mike Evans, Marvin Harrison,
Hmm.
Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson. And then going after him is Devontae Adams, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Cortland Sutton.
I might have to take all those guys before Rice. It's just I can't. I don't.
Really?
I personally can't deal with that kind of question mark like that. I mean, like what happens if he's suspended for 6, 8 games? I mean, that's a massive chunk of your season, especially in the middle of the year when, the standings kind of work their way out and you kind of get an idea of who's going to be in the playoffs. And once you get to week 10, like now it's like time for you're getting ready for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, the trade deadline's around there. You're finalizing your roster if you are in a position to compete. Um, and to have somebody that you're drafting in the fourth round, and all of a sudden that's not, it's coming around. He's going to miss all this time. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if I can take that risk.
See, I don't know if I guess my thought process on this is that I am going at it with the lens of I get Rashi Rice for 4 weeks, and 4 weeks of Rashi Rice is pretty good. And if I can be 3-1, 4-0 with him, and all the while within weeks, 1 through 4, I find out what my plan is after losing him after that, because you're going to lose him. Maybe I make a trade here, or I make a waiver wire pickup there. Maybe some injuries happen, and I'm able to kind of score on that. I got 4 weeks of Rashi Rice. I lose him. Maybe I don't lose. You know what I mean? Like, who knows what happens? Maybe he gets
Yeah.
six games, he appeals it, and it's down to 4, and he only loses 4 games. You know what I mean? You miss him for 4 weeks, and then you get him back for the rest of the season and playoffs. Like it's the gamble that we play. But I think if you can come up with a good action plan when you lose Rashi Rice for however long you're going to lose him, I don't mind taking him and rolling the dice on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know,
I
I
guess it's
think
a fair point.
it's all about the forward thinkingness of it. Is like you got to be constantly scouring the waiver wire, working trades, so that when you eventually do lose him, it's like, or trade him. You know what I mean? Maybe somebody's like, wow, Rashi Rice is like a top dude, and I'm willing to take on the baggage if he is suspended. Trade him away, cash out. You know what I mean?
All right.
Those are some potential options. Um, and then last piece of news. This one's a good one. Um, Los Angeles Chargers have re-signed Keenan Allen. I believe they sent him to a 1 year, $8 million deal. I think this was something that was advantageous for both sides. Obviously Keenan was looking for a team to play for. The Chargers were looking for, another receiver after losing Mike Williams, and trying to work out guys and things like that. I think this is great. I think the one thing that this hurts is, if you are a Trey Harris manager in Dynasty, and honestly, I think if you're a Lad McConkey redraft owner
Really?
for the redraft season, I think this potentially hurts him, because the connection that he has with Justin Herbert, it was on that borderline, like, not saying he played to this caliber, but it was on that borderline of like Burrow Chase, where it was like he knew exactly where he was going to be on the
Yeah.
field when he needed him the most. And you don't lose something like that,
Right.
being with that kind of talent. So
He was only
um
gone a year, right?
Yeah, and he was only gone for 1 year. It's not like he was gone for like 3 or 4 years, and he was able to build this relationship with Lad. Like
Although it
obviously,
feels like 4 years.
yeah, he has a connection with Lad, but I think it's much stronger with Keenan Allen. So I would see that like in those money down situations, like he's probably going to look and go to Keenan Allen. That's why I think it might hurt him, but maybe I'm wrong. I never know. You think you so? Do you think this hurts Lad in redraft sense?
I don't know if I'm willing to say it's going to hurt as much you think it does. I definitely think Keenan Allen now has some redraft value for sure,
Oh yeah, big time.
as a flex option or a wide receiver three or however you want to name it. I definitely think it's still Lad's offense, but you're right. Like when you have a connection like that, that doesn't go away, especially since it's only been a season. I think the Chargers are well aware of, what they have in Lad McConkey and then also where Keenan Allen is in his career. Like I think this offense is still going to be fully tailored around Lad McConkey and getting him the ball in space how they did last year. If anything, I think it's going to make his job easier. This is the conversation we had all offseason is that the Chargers need to add another wide receiver to help out Lad. And yes, they went and drafted Trey Harris. So yeah, this sucks for Trey Harris dynasty managers, at least for now. But this is something we talked about. They needed somebody else. They need another pass catcher, and finally they found somebody, somebody that they're comfortable with, especially Justin Herbert, he obviously is very comfortable with Keenan Allen. So I definitely think he has some value. It may hurt Lad McConkey a little bit. There may be some situations where you're watching the game this year and you're like, why, last year that goes to Lad 12 times out of 10, and maybe it goes to him 7 times out of 10 this year.
Right, exactly. So, we'll have to kind of see how that plays out. I think going back to the other pieces, though, I think this hurts Trey Harris because I think Keenan is definitely going to get more run than Trey Harris. And the other thing too is that obviously we all think of Keenan Allen as an exclusively slot wide receiver, but when he played in Chicago last year, he got a lot of run uh playing on the outside. I don't know, I don't have his splits exactly, but I know he was not an exclusive slot player. Like him and DJ Moore would switch on that. And you know, Keenan was a 100 target guy last year. He had 121 targets. So it's not like he, you know, excuse me, lost a step. He still had 121 targets, 70 receptions, you know, was working with Caleb Williams, who, was a rookie quarterback. So you hope that, he's back with Justin Herbert. He's going to get a little bit more work.
I think he can be valuable for Trey Harris though, because we talked about how raw Trey Harris is as an athlete,
Oh, as a
and
mentor,
as a football. And yes, now you have one of the best mentors you can possibly have.
I agree. So we'll see how that plays out. Uh, so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break and then we're going to come back with our values of the show. We'll be right back. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to the Fourth and Fantasy podcast. Back from a little intermission.
Spilled water everywhere.
Of course, we did. what's
It's
uh,
fine. Just
what's an
ignoring it.
episode where we don't spill water on ourselves? But, anyways, we are going to get into the meat of the episode. We've gone through our sleepers, we've gone through our busts, we've gone through our breakouts. Now we're here to give you our value picks.
These are huge,
Yeah, these are huge. Like
huge for drafts.
essentially, like if this is where you kind of win in the draft, right? You find these guys as your value picks, and they potentially win you a league. You know what I mean? I think back to numerous years. The year I won the championship, and I had Jamar Chase. You know what I mean? And he basically won me the championship week last year. A huge value for me was Chuba Hubbard, and obviously Chuba Hubbard wasn't on my roster when I won the league, but I was able to trade him off for some pieces who helped me win a
Yeah,
championship.
who did I give you for Chuba Hubbard?
You gave me JSN, and Drake London, for
Yeah.
that. So
Well,
like,
I got Darnell Mooney when he was like the wide receiver 8, but I was so down
yes,
atrocious. I had to give up everything I had.
right. But so then I was able to take Drake London because that was the year last year I drafted Marvin Harrison, and he was a total bust, and I was able to basically recover from that, play Drake London, and those were the last 2 weeks, the semis and the championship, where he had Penix and Penix hyper targeted him, and it saved me.
Yeah.
So basically, what we're saying is, these values could be the difference between winning a championship and not winning a championship. So Wu and I each have a pick for each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. But these are just our suggestions. You know what I mean? Like, I encourage all of you listening, all of you watching. If you don't like these picks, try to do the research yourself and find those diamonds in the rough. You know what I
And let
mean?
us know.
I was gonna say, please let us know, because I want to know who it is, so I know to draft them. But these are some players right now that we found kind of like diamonds in the rough that could potentially win you a championship. So I'm going to kick it off in the quarterback position, and I'm going to give you Jordan Love. Obviously, if you paid attention to last week's episode, I told you, or I think we all told you, me, Wu, and Steve, we were kind of in on the Green Bay Packers. And I remember giving you the bet on taking Jordan Love for the MVP at like plus 2,400. Right now, Jordan Love's going at the quarterback 15 draft, being drafted in the 1104. I just want to remind everybody 2 years ago what Jordan Love did. Jordan Love 2 years ago was the quarterback 5 and had 4,159 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, and he played 17 games. Obviously, we have recency bias and we just remember what the most previous year or most recent year was, and it was atrocious. You know what I mean? Like, but it started off bad. He had the injury in the Brazil game right off the rip, and that was kind of really what set him back. And he was basically playing an uphill battle. After that, he misses 2 weeks. He comes back and he's the quarterback 2 against Minnesota. Then had a rough week, quarterback 16, and then had a good stretch. But then, like, weeks 12 through 14, he was quarterback 16, 16, 17. And then the last 3 weeks, it was bad: 26, 22, 36. All of those weeks, though, I'm chalking it up to an injury. Well, I'm just I'm
That's
not
fair.
I don't want to hear the argument of he took a step back, the offense isn't as good. I don't believe that. I think he was injured. They had to lean on. Thank God they had Josh Jacobs, because they lean on Josh Jacobs, and that propels them into. I believe they made the playoffs last year. I can't.
Oh yeah.
I can't. Yeah. So that propels them into the playoffs. Now this year, you get a hopefully a full healthy offseason of Jordan Love. He enters the season healthy. I think they want to throw the ball, right? You don't spend your first round pick on a wide receiver to then just hand the ball to Josh Jacobs. I don't believe it. He's got a lot of weapons in, I mentioned, Matthew Golden, which have not heard bad things coming from Matthew Golden out of camp. So I guess no news, and really no news at all. So no news, I think, is good news on his front. Then you throw in Reed in the mix. You have Romeo Dobbs. You have Tucker Kraft. Like, he just has so many weapons to distribute the ball around. And it's not like defenses have to hyper target on Golden or hyper target on Reed. He can get you so many different ways. And back to what I was saying before, I think the Packers overall are going to be a dominant team in the NFC. And if that's going to happen, it's got to be because Jordan Love had a good year. So if you're taking him as the quarterback 15, which people would be taking him as your second quarterback, like, and you can wait on him and take him as your first quarterback, just think about the value of other picks that you can take, where, like, let's just say in the sixth, seventh, eighth round, people are taking quarterbacks, and you're just taking wide receiver, running backs, and potentially tight end there.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right with chalking this up to an injury last year, because there was definitely something off, and they wanted to have him back because they needed him back. So clearly he wasn't given enough time to recover from whatever it was. I also think the proof is in the pudding with how many opportunities they gave Josh Jacobs. I think that tells you right that there was something going on with Jordan Love throughout the year. And especially since what we saw from him in 2023. I mean, it was a night and day difference between then and last year. So I definitely agree that there was some kind of lingering injury that he just never fully recovered from. And to take him as a quarterback 15, like you said, at that point, he's probably your quarterback 2 at that point in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So either you have another option anyways if he does burn out, or you have a trade piece, or or you want to trade your other quarterback depending on who it is. I think it gives you a lot of options.
Yeah, and I will also say the last 4 years of Josh Jacobs has been such a ping pong year. You know what I mean? Like 2021, he had 872 rushing yards. The next year he had 1653, was the running back three. The year after that was his last year in Vegas. He had 805. And then this past year in Green Bay, he was a running back five and had 1,329 rushing yards. So, listen, I'm not saying I believe in the red light, green light kind of thing, but that's just food for thought right there. He did have 344 opportunities. And in 2022, he had 404 opportunities. The following year, he had 287. So I'm not expecting like a huge drop off like that, but I think you're going to see a decline in touches from Josh Jacobs. And the difference in that is they're just going to be more passing attempts for Jordan Love, and that's great, good for fantasy overall, I think, in my honest opinion.
Yeah, I'm with that.
So moving into Woo's quarterback pick for a value, who do you got, Woo?
I got Kyler Murray right now. He is the quarterback 10 off the board, going at the 812 for his ADP. And we talk about this all the time. Quarterbacks who have rushing upsides are broken in fantasy, and he is going way too late for somebody who can run as well as he can. The rushing upside is insane. I look back to his season in 2020 when he was the quarterback two. He didn't even throw for 4,000 yards. He had 819 rushing yards. He also had 11 rushing touchdowns, which will skew those numbers, and that's not something that we can predict. However, to not throw for 4,000 yards and to still be the quarterback two in fantasy that year, I think that's I'm pretty sure that tells you all you need to know about what rushing quarterbacks can do in fantasy for you. He's got a well-rounded duo of pass catchers with high upside, in Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. Looking back to 2020, I was checking out the passing receiving options he had. He had
I can
37
only
year
imagine.
he had 37-year-old Larry Fitzgerald. DeAndre
Jesus.
Hopkins was still 28 at the time. But I would like to think that the combination of Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride, it provides a more steady floor than a 37-year-old Larry Fitzgerald was.
Right.
So I think this is probably going to be one of the better receiving rooms that he's had. And again, with those two guys have high upside. We've seen out of Trey McBride. We're both anticipating a breakout year out of Marvin Harrison. And honestly, I was just pleasantly surprised with their offense as a whole last year. I didn't really have high expectations for them, and they were a lot better than I thought they were going to be. The one thing I will say about Kyler Murray is I need to, and this honestly, I don't think this is his fault. I need to see the running ability being used for all four quarters. Last year, it was like a tale of two halves. First half, he'd be running all over
Yes.
the place. Second half, didn't rush one time,
My
and then
God.
vice versa all throughout the year.
As someone who had him in fantasy last year, it was like running my head, like bashing my head against a brick
It's like,
wall.
why?
Oh my God, it was so bad. I was just looking at his rushing stats over the year. Did you know last year was yeah, last year was his best year for yards per attempt. He only had 78 attempts, had 572 rushing yards. But the other thing that I've heard over the offseason is that I think Kyler pays attention to it because he's mentioned to the media that he looks at people like Lamar Jackson and how frequently he uses his legs, and he feels as though that he should probably be doing the same. So I would love to see a Kyler Murray who is going to utilize his legs more, because I think that's great for fantasy football.
And the other thing I'll say is every year that he plays at least 14 games, he's been a top 10 quarterback in fantasy that year. So let's say he plays 14 games, you're drafting him at his price. So it's not like you're overpaying, and with the upside that he brings to the table with running the ball. That's where I think the value comes is if you're drafting him as a quarterback 10, he has the ability to finish in the top five, and to take a top five quarterback potentially in the eighth round. At the back half, you could call that the ninth round at that point if you
Oh
wanted.
yeah.
And there's plenty of drafts. We see this all the time with our Bonnet League, where yes, ADP, it's a good indicator of where guys may go, but there's rounds where quarterbacks just don't go, and I wouldn't be surprised if Kyler Murray made it to like the tenth round in our Bonnet League, or even the 11th.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to see if I can really quick pull up the draft results, and when I picked him up in our league, I took him. I was early. I took him round six. I think that was just because I had Marvin Harrison, and I
Yeah,
wanted
you
to.
want to finish up that stack.
Yeah, I wanted to ensure the stack. But I want to say I had gotten him in another league, in like a family league, in like round 11 or like 12.
Yeah.
So like, know your league. So basically what Wu's getting at is like know your league and be able to capitalize on that. So if you know that your league's not going to take quarterbacks early, then you can sit and wait and potentially get him at even a bigger value than what he's at right now.
That's just way too late in a draft for somebody who can run the ball as well as he can. I just it doesn't make much sense to me. I don't understand that ADP.
Yeah. So we're going to move into the running back position. I'm going to kick it off. Uh, this man is probably like largest value that you could probably find in this draft, and it's J.K. Dobbins. Right now, J.K. Dobbins is being drafted as the running back 43. Yes, 43 in the 12th round. I just want to say to everyone, he is the RB1 on the depth chart in Denver, and he's being drafted as a running back 43 in the 12th round. There's something that we're not connecting here.
Somebody has to be way off. It's either us or it's the Broncos.
It is. And, you know, I think people initially bought the hype of RJ Harvey and juiced up his ADP. Like, even if this is true and people start to cool on RJ Harvey, his ADP is up so high right now, he won't be able to come down if we're correct. If the people are correct on RJ Harvey, then this pick is pointless. But I don't think that this is smoke and mirrors. I think this is actually true because this is my biggest thing. The biggest thing that you have to do in the NFL as a NFL running back is you have to be able to pass protect. If you cannot pass protect, you will not see the field. Like full stop. Like it goes with everybody. I don't care if you are, Ashton Genty. I don't care if you're RJ Harvey. If you can't pass protect, you won't see the field. And I don't think RJ Harvey has mastered that skill. And if you're Sean Payton, who's the head coach of this team, and you have, big dream aspirations, can you really put RJ Harvey on the field next to your franchise quarterback in Bo Nix and potentially put him in danger? And because, like, let's be honest, the Broncos lose Bo Nix, their season's done.
Oh yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
So Sean Payton has to play this properly. Like, I'm sure he loves RJ Harvey, the talent, but he may not be ready currently at this situation. So, you don't just go out and pay J.K. Dobbins fresh off the couch for, I want to say it was like almost an $8 million deal or something around that ballpark, which for in running back money, that matters. So I really think that, getting him now in the 12th round is such a huge value. I think that, eventually RJ Harvey's going to take over, but if you can capitalize on, let's call it, 4 to 6, maybe in the best case scenario, 8 weeks of J.K. Dobbins as the RB1, getting that work behind a pretty good Denver offensive line. And the last time we saw RJ Harvey behind a good offensive line was last year with the Chargers. He almost had 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yard rushing, and nine touchdowns. So it's still there for him. And I think he's a huge value right now this year in drafts.
Yeah, it's a storyline you have to pay attention to, and especially where he's being drafted at that point. There, it's basically a $0 price tag on him. He's not going to kill you whatsoever.
Absolutely.
He's probably not even. He's on your bench at that point. It's not even
He's
a
like
starting position.
he's your RB4 or 5 at that point. And
Exactly.
and so, I mean, listen, it is what it is. I'm here to give the people the news. Maybe I'm giving up draft strategy. It is what it is. People of the Bonnet League, close your ears. But like, you can, with that in your back pocket, you can take chances on guys like Travion Henderson, Caleb Johnson, because we all know that rookie running backs really struggle in the first half of the season, and then they come on strong. So let's just say that Travion Henderson or Caleb Johnson does very poorly in the first half of the year. Well, I have the added cushion of, playing J.K. Dobbins, who's going to get me a couple of weeks so that when they finally flip the script in their respective positions and they take over and, they're the star, I finally get the value of them being a starter, but I didn't have to sit and wait. I had someone I could slot in as my RB2 through all the way.
Exactly. And again, being drafted that late, I mean, you can kind of play around with him with your roster. You can even just not even touch him for the first 2 weeks, kind of let him
Mm-hmm.
sit there, see what the offense looks like, see what kind of touches he's getting. Maybe you play him on more of a matchup base, like depending on what kind of defense he's going up that against that week. Maybe you play him that way. But you can basically what I'm trying to say is he can be on your team and he doesn't have to be in your starting lineup. You can scout how this season's going to play out on a week to week basis for him without losing any value. A, that's in your starting roster, and B, then while you're drafting, you can still load up on the rest of those positions, and then like you said, keep them in your back pocket.
Absolutely. Woo, who is your value pick for this year?
It's gonna be Chuba Hubbard, man.
Oh,
He
your
is the
guy.
my guy. I love Chuba. Running back 18 off the board, so he's going at the 411 for the average draft position. He is a workhorse running back at the end of the fourth round. It's very rare that you can come across something like that. This is opportunities galore for Chuba Hubbard. Jonathan Brooks is out for the year, which I feel bad for, but obviously it's great for Chuba Hubbard. And the guys behind him are Rico Dowdle and Trevor Etienne. Like, are we serious? Is this even a conversation? The backfield is Chuba Hubbard's. Fully expecting this Panthers offense to improve and be in more scoring scenarios, more positions to score touchdowns, being in the red zone more often, therefore putting Chuba Hubbard in a position to score more often. His targets have gone up every year, which I think is a good sign. Yes, it's a small sample size. He really only came onto the scene last year, but still something that you have to pay attention to. And if I'm someone who, I am someone who can be in a position to take a top tier running back in the first round. Let's say I go Jameer Gibbs, and then I get to go wide receiver, and now I get Chuba Hubbard in the fourth round. Chuba Hubbard's my second running back, and he's a running back one who's a workhorse who's getting
Oh
all these
yeah.
opportunities on a week to week basis. So I think Chuba's somebody who can. If he's being drafted as the running back 18, I don't think that's a crazy price for him. If he finishes as an RB 18, I don't think that kills you on your year. Yes, you're disappointed in that. He was the running back 13 last year. I think he can be a top 12 guy. He was pushing on it last year. He played 15 games. He missed a couple. But he had 250 rushing attempts. It was only 12 more attempts than he had in 2023 when he was the RB 26. I expect those touches to go up more. And again, I just expect the Panthers to be a better offense as a whole, being in the red zone more, having more opportunities for him to score. And if the targets are going to keep going up, even if so, last year he had 54 targets. Even if that goes up to 64, that's still 10 more opportunities for him to catch the ball, gain some PPR points. I'm all in on Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, I like that. I will say I was ripping a couple of mock drafts for our league, and he is looking very interesting in the third round for me. So and I was not obviously, I had him on my roster, and really he kind of just sat on my roster until it was like, oh my God, like he's actually
He's a
like,
baller.
yeah, he's a baller, you know what I mean? And then by that time I cashed him out and traded him over. But this year with the situation of like how the draft goes and things like that, he could be a very interesting wide receiver. Sorry, running back too.
And
For the team.
the big thing I like for Chuba is they gave him that big extension this offseason. So clearly they're all in on this guy.
Yeah, no, the future is Chuba. Even if Jonathan Brooks, comes back, I don't think we expect him to be the prospect that they drafted, especially re-injuring the same ACL that he was coming off of. So I think it's all Chuba ahead until he proves to them otherwise that he can't do it. Moving into the wide receiver position, my wide receiver pick I have for you is going to be Jalen Waddle, wide receiver from the Miami Dolphins. Jalen Waddle is currently going as the wide receiver 31 in the sixth round, 609. I don't know. Is it me, or is I just feel like no one is talking about Jalen Waddle this year.
Nobody.
Nobody. I,
Nobody.
I I just feel like, don't get me wrong, he had the worst season of his career last year, but I feel like people are just like throwing everything they know about Jalen Waddle beforehand out the window, and it's
Miami
just
has
like,
one down year and all of a sudden he can't play
yeah,
football.
like we're all done. You know what I mean? And obviously, yes, it was due to injury, but the other key piece of that was the poor quarterback play. Once Tua was out, it was just like hodgepodge of quarterbacks trying to fill the void in. So I mean, I guess the way I take this is, what if Tua plays a full healthy season? You know what I mean? They got rid of Janu, and they bring in Darren Waller, which by the way, we haven't even we talked about how that was such a terrible like pickup or trade. Well, they traded for the Giants, but do you realize he's been on the pup in the entire time?
He hasn't even been practicing.
He has not been practicing. When they traded for him, Wu, they were like, he's still in great shape at his age and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
But then
clearly.
they put him on the pup because they were trying to get him like back into shape. So I want
Yeah,
to
I'm
say
sure he
he
looks good working out in the gym, but when it comes to getting hit by, big dudes in the NFL, it's a little bit different.
it's a whole different ball game. So I'm not buying into the hype of Darren Waller at all. I loved Darren Waller before, but I think his time has passed. And I think Waddle's going to pick up the slack in the short area, targets. And I don't think, especially because everyone has, felt as though they've figured out Miami. It's just you play the cover two shell like you do against the Chiefs, and you stop Miami. But Waddle's going to eat underneath all day long with catches and yards after the catch and things like that. So he may see more touches. I totally agree with anyone who sees this take and is like, I'm out because I don't trust Tua. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all. But you cannot say that you're out on Jalen Waddle being a value because of the talent. Because 2 years ago, he was the wide receiver 7 with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was there and he was the wide receiver 7, which was even better than his rookie season when he was the wide receiver 16 and had 104 receptions. So we can't sit here and say that, Jalen Waddle isn't talented or anything like that. There are other factors that are coming into play. And you look into this summer, yes, I said, he was a wide receiver 7 2 years ago with Tyreek. And it looks like Tyreek's taken a step back, last year and into the summer. Already talking about Tyreek having to deal with I believe it's a hamstring issue, some soft tissue issue that he's dealing with right now. Is it going to play into the start of the season? Maybe. But the other thing too is Tyreek is going to be either 32 or 33. I want to say it's
I think 32.
32 years old. And could we see what the Rams did with Cooper Kupp and just, they choose to phase out Tyreek later on in the season and give more touches to Waddle and just let him kind of step into that alpha role. Like, Jalen Waddle, you are our number one receiver. We're going to give you all the work.
Yeah, and to your point about, the defense is sitting in that cover two shell like they do with Kansas City, telling you to beat them underneath. Mike McDaniel's too smart to let that slide and not have manufactured touches underneath for those specific scenarios. And when you have speed like you do with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, I mean, you let those guys catch a ball in space. I don't care how many guys you have over the top. I mean, they could outrun all of them.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, so again, let me just pull up his ADP and who's going around him, and
Yeah.
you tell me who you would rather have.
Yep.
So, oh my God. So going ahead, would you rather have Jalen Waddle or Travis Hunter?
Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle or George Pickens?
Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle or Tedero McMillan?
Jalen Waddle.
Wow. Okay.
Nah, it's tough.
That one's tough. I think I
But
lean
when I have tough ones like that, and one's a rookie and one's been on the field, I'm picking the guy who's on the field.
yeah, you take the veteran. Uh Last one, Jalen Waddle or Jameson Williams.
Jalen Waddle.
Okay. Uh and then I don't need to go all the guys after Olave, Addison, Judy, Godwin, Ridley. I think we take Waddle
Waddle,
over all
Waddle,
those
Waddle,
guys.
Waddle.
So I think even by ADP stance, and how we feel, he's being undervalued. And so being, taking him at the 609 is definitely a great value.
I forget what episode was a couple ones ago, but I brought up Waddle. I've been in on him for a couple months now. And I definitely do see him as a value, so he's someone I'm targeting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've just hit the realization now, and I'm just on board with you. Now I'm
Let's go.
wondering who's got him in Dynasty.
That's a good question. Not me.
Ooh,
My team sucks.
it's all right. You get there. Oh,
I might
Zach
go 0 for this year.
I might have to send Zach a little trade.
Yeah.
But sorry, that's for later off air. Let me kick it to you. Go ahead. Who's your wide receiver value?
Yeah, we're going back to Denver. I got Cortland Sutton. Right now, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 23 off of the board, going at the 503 for average draft position. He is the wide receiver 1 in the Denver offense that made absolutely zero big moves, to bolster this offense for a young quarterback in Bo Nix, who, like I said earlier on in this show, like lit up last year, kind of at least in my eyes, out of nowhere. And for Denver to be in the position they were this offseason with the draft capital they had some money to spend, you were thinking like, oh, they got to make some kind of splash play. I mean, obviously, I like Cortland Sutton clearly because I'm picking him here, but in terms of the future and pairing somebody with Bo Nix, you would think they would went out and get somebody else, but they didn't. He also recently signed an extension, 4 years, 92 million. I think it was 24 guaranteed. I don't remember exactly. It was 20 something guaranteed.
It's good money right there.
Exactly. And I'm anticipating Nick's taking the next step as a passer, breaching that 4,000 mark. Last year, he had 3,700 yards. Great rookie season. But I think he has the ability to get over that 4,000 yard mark. Last year, Cortland Sutton had a career high in targets with 135. Let me say that again. Cortland Sutton had 135 targets last year. I mean, that's up there with, you look at the rest of the league. I mean, you think of those top names who are target dominant. Cortland Sutton was right there. And again, they added nobody else. So why would these targets go down? He only had 81 catches last year, so the catch percentage was only at 60. So you would like to see that target number either remain where it is or increase, but then also those receptions going up with them as well. And he's being drafted near wide receiver twos that are like wide receiver two on an NFL team. So guys like George Pickens, Jamison Williams, Devontae Smith, who I all like. But when it comes to the structure of an offense, the ball is going to go to the wide receiver one more often than not. Why am I going to draft somebody who's a wide receiver two who's already competing for targets when Cortland Sutton is going to get force fed the ball here? And where he's being drafted in the fifth round, at that point, he could be your wide receiver three on your roster. So you're telling me I'm going to the third receiver on my roster is going to be the wide receiver one for a good offense with a good quarterback who made no moves and has really nobody else to catch the ball. I mean, Marvin Mims showed some flashes last year, but it's not enough for me to be, discouraged in drafting Cortland Sutton. I mean, yes, it's a fifth round. So like my last couple picks here, with Chuba being in the fourth round and Cortland Sutton being in the fifth round, yes, that's still high up in your draft. And yes, there's a ton of value at that point. But when it comes to the situations that they're in, I think that's where the value comes when we're calling this episode, our value picks for these drafts. I mean, he's like I said, he's being drafted as the wide receiver 23 right now. I mean, last year he was the wide receiver 13. You're telling me I can get him 10 spots behind where he's gonna be finishing? I mean, last year was a great year, and I don't know if he can still be a top 15 guy, but I think he can easily be a top 20 guy. And if he's gonna be target dominant the way he is in this Denver offense, and if they're gonna continue to get better, and Bo Nix does take that step and can get over 4,000 yards, I mean, he's easily in the top 15 conversation. And now you're beating his, where he's being drafted by 8 spots.
Yeah.
That's your value right there.
It's kind of criminal, like just the way you made that take. It just makes it like it's criminal that he's being drafted where he's being
I
drafted.
just don't get it.
Like nothing changed. If anything,
The only thing that
another
changes is his age went up a year.
right, and we don't care about that for redraft. You know what I mean? Like I'll take a 29-year-old wide receiver. I don't think he'll eventually. What is he? 29.8. So he'll turn 30 during this year, but I maybe the year after I'm out on him, but you get one more good season of Cortland Sutton and you're gonna get him at a value in the fifth round, like just you said, like I can take him potentially as my wide receiver three. I filled my running back spots and my two wide receiver spots, and now I have Cortland Sutton. Like that's awesome, especially on an offense with the Denver Broncos who have, postseason aspirations and they're gonna be a really good team. They could potentially win 10, double digit games. And if they do that, he's probably going to be the reason why they do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they have a bona fide stud in the running backfield. Yes, I talked about, J.K. Dobbins being a value, but, the kind of hole in the argument of J.K. Dobbins is he's only going to do so well until he kind of tires himself out. It's what happened in LA. You know what I mean? Like everything was amazing the first month of the season, but then he either got too tired, whether it was injuries catching up to him and he didn't get full conditioning, or whatever it may be, and then they had to turn to a different direction. Like sure, it may seem like J.K. Dobbins is gonna take over, but they're gonna lean on this passing game, and I think Sean Payton's going to expect just more out of Bo Nix, and Bo Nix is going to have to build this connection with Cortland Sutton going forward.
I got two more things on Sutton before we move on. Another reason why I don't care about his age, the Broncos, like I said, just gave him a 4 year extension. So clearly they don't care either.
Yep.
And then also, he only, I say only, he had 8 touchdowns last year. He can eat being like I said, if he's going to be the wide receiver one in this offense, which he will,
He's had multiple years at double-digit touchdowns.
exactly. He falls in the end zone a couple more times. Maybe he's a wide receiver 10 last year. I mean, these are all things you have to consider, especially just again, the situation that he's in. He is the guy. He is where Bo Nix is in trouble. He is looking, where is Cortland Sutton? How can I get him this ball? Because he's the one who needs to have it in his hands. Maybe he falls into the end zone a few more times this year.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I like that one. All right, we are going to round out our values episode with our tight end position. I'm going to go back to the well here. I talked about this player during our breakout episode, and I'm going to talk to about him again as our value. It's Tyler Warren, rookie tight end for the Indianapolis Colts, going as the tight end 11 right now in the ninth round, 906. Listen, I can just reiterate all the points that I gave to you in the breakout episode about, him being an athletic freak in college and, having that elite college production, won the awards, did everything that was needed and got the draft capital, in the first round, with a team that, needs a tight end royally so bad. You know what I mean? Like, it was criminal watching the Indianapolis Colts last year because they had, outside of like Michael Pittman Jr. and Josh Downs, they had nobody to throw the ball to, and they had absolutely nobody at tight end. So now they fill it with an elite guy like Tyler Warren. And we were talking about this before we hit record. Well, preseason week one, Tyler Warren was out with the ones the entire time. He played all of his snaps with the ones, and when he did it, he had 3 targets for 3 catches and 30 yards. Receiving. Like, he was the entire offense on that drive with them. And that was with Anthony Richardson playing and then getting hurt and Daniel Jones coming in. So I will, the caveat I will give to you though is that I don't believe Michael Pittman or Josh Downs played that game. So we'd have to wait and kind of see when all three of them are on the field, how the distribution kind of pans out. But again, I will reiterate it. I'm not afraid of Michael Pittman or Josh Downs. And you're telling me, again, back to the value case of this, I'm getting him in the ninth round where I can fill out essentially my entire starting lineup and then, take Tyler Warren to fill in. And, if you're on the bandwagon of I am with Tyler Warren, I potentially see him as a top 5 tight end, and I take him in the ninth round. Like, everything that I just get beforehand is just a bonus in my opinion. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm in love with the dude, like, but I think he's gonna be a monster for fantasy this year.
Well, I was just gonna say I'm definitely still a little skittish on Tyler Warren, but every time you bring him up, I inch closer and closer to being willing to draft him. And if you keep bringing him up, I'm gonna steal him from you in the bonnet
I
draft.
know.
So just be careful.
Listen, you can steal him from me, and when I'm right, you
That means he's gonna crash and burn.
just give me the props though when I'm right. That's all I'm gonna say.
So it's either you draft him and you're right, or I draft him and you're wrong.
Yeah.
So those are our two options here.
So just let me get him then, and,
Yeah.
and don't worry about him. All right, we'll round us out with the your tight end value pick.
I'm also going back to the well. I'm doubling down on this guy, and for good reason. It's Jake Ferguson from the Cowboys. He
Bird
is
Daddy.
he is being drafted as the tight end 16 off of the board. 16.
He's being left for dead.
Yeah, 1004 ADP. I'm gonna go back to last time we talked about or at least I talked about Jake Ferguson. Last time Dak was healthy for 17 games, he was the tight end 9 on the year. Last year he would have finished as the tight end 7 with those stats. 102 targets, 71 receptions, 5 touchdowns, and 177 fantasy points on the year. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Dak's going to get injured again. I'm going into this year as if Dak's playing all 17 games. I think that's the mindset everybody should have with any kind of player. Nobody can sit here and predict an injury. If you are, I think you don't deserve to have a platform, but that's just my thing. Um,
Get him.
so I just think he's an important piece in this offense. And yes, I hear the argument with Pickens, but Dallas has zero running game. Their defense sucks, and it's about to suck even more if Jerry Jones doesn't figure out this deal with Micah Parsons, because
Oh
that would
my
be a
god.
massive loss.
Do
And
you
if they
do
don't,
you do you think they don't get a deal done? Like, they have to get a deal
I
done
was
for
just gonna
this.
say, if they don't sign Micah Parsons, me and you could lead an offense down the field against that defense because it's pathetic. It's
God.
pathetic. So I mean that these are the things we have to keep in mind with the Cowboys. Again, no running game. I have zero faith In oh my God, who they have? Javonte Williams.
Javonte Williams.
Zero faith. Could not care less about their. I am so if I'm an opposing defense, I see them handing off the ball. I'm like, thank God, I get to rest a play here. So I think Cowboys, it's going to be air raid, pass after pass after pass. And yes, they added Pickens, but Jake Ferguson is still going to be a part of this offense. Like with that, he's way too cheap in a draft to not take a stab. And I say take a stab, but I wouldn't even consider it taking a stab. Like I'm comfortable running him out week one as my starter, no matter the matchup. They're playing Philly week one. That's a great defense. I'm starting Jake Ferguson week one if he's on my team.
Yeah, and you don't even have to do that. You can give yourself the added cushion of taking a late round tight end and then going to take Tyler Warren with your last round pick because he's being so left for dead,
Yep.
and then just play the matchups. Obviously, like you said, you like the matchup against Philly week one,
I
but if
don't like
someone,
the matchup, but I'm saying I'm
oh,
comfortable
you're willing to
starting
playing him,
Ferguson.
but even still, you could draft a tight end in your draft to then play week one and just see how it plays out with Ferguson and Dak. And if all your priors are true, fire them up week two, and then you're good to go.
And again, at that point in the draft, it's not going to kill me.
Absolutely. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Those are our value picks for 2025. If you like what you're hearing, please make sure you give us a follow on all of our socials: Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy, YouTube at Fourth and Fantasy. Make sure you're leaving us a like, a share, comment, 5-star rating, all those good things. We have, we're officially testing and we're going to 2 podcasts a week. So we appreciate you guys kind of, being patient with us, letting us work out the kinks through this process. We'll get it down. We'll get it down pat, and you're going to see a lot of good quality content coming from us over here at Fourth and Fantasy.
Oh
So
yeah.
please make sure that you are staying tuned, keeping an eye out for it. And again, any help that you need with your fantasy rosters, your fantasy drafts, things like that, please shoot us a DM or a comment on any of our videos, and we'll try our best to get back to you and help you out. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you on the other side.
See ya.